The screen flickers to life with a single frame, a muddy boot kicking open a rotten farmhouse door. Dust explodes into the beam of a flashlight. A man's voice, cracked and breathless, whispers straight into the camera. "Guys. I left this place empty 3 weeks ago. I swear on my daughter's life. I locked it. Turn the volume up. You're not gonna believe who's inside." Smash cut to black. White text slams on screen. Like if your heart's already racing. Subscribe right now, because this story broke me, and then put me back together. The video opens properly. My name is Caleb Mercer. 34 years old. Single dad. Construction foreman. And 3 months ago I was one missed child support payment away from losing everything. I'm holding the camera myself, walking the overgrown lane toward the farmhouse I bought at auction for $42,000 cash, every dime of my wife's life insurance money after the accident. The place hadn't been lived in since 1998. Windows shot out. Porch collapsed. Raccoons the size of dogs. But it came with 60 acres of good timber, and I needed a project bigger than my grief. First day, I brought my daughter Harper. 7 years old, all knees and freckles, clutching her stuffed giraffe named Captain. She stood in the weed-choked yard and said, "Daddy, it's sad." I told her, "That's why we're here, baby girl. We're gonna make it happy again." We spent 6 weeks gutting the place. Just the two of us on weekends. Harper handed me nails. I let her paint one wall sunshine yellow because she said the house needed to smile. We slept in a tent in the front room, ate hot dogs cooked over a campfire, and for the first time since the funeral, I heard her laugh without that hollow echo behind it. Then school started. I had to go back to the city for work. Bills were stacking. I boarded the windows, chained the doors, kissed Harper goodbye at my sister's apartment, and promised her, 3 weeks, max. Then we move in for good. That was August 29th. I came back October 11th. The chain was cut. Clean. Bolt cutters. My stomach dropped so hard I almost threw up in the gravel. I should have called the sheriff. Instead I pulled my pistol, turned the camera on, and pushed the door. The first thing that hit me was the smell, cinnamon and wood smoke. The second thing was the sound, a woman humming. I stepped into my kitchen, and there were lanterns. Battery ones, soft gold light. The holes in the floor were patched with fresh pine boards. My camping stove was glowing red under a pot of something that smelled like heaven. And at the table, back to me, 2 women. One maybe 60, gray braid down her back, stirring the pot. The other couldn't have been older than 25, red hair twisted up with a pencil, writing in a notebook. I must have made a noise because the older one turned first. She didn't scream. She just looked at me with eyes the color of creek water and said, "Calm as Sunday, you're early, Caleb Mercer. Soup's not ready." I raised the gun and somehow managed, "How the hell do you know my name?" The younger one closed her notebook, stood up slow, hands open. "Because Harper told us all about you. She said her daddy was coming back to fix the stars." My knees buckled. The gun dipped. "Harper's in Knoxville with my sister." The old woman smiled like she was welcoming me home from war. "Harper's upstairs asleep. She got here 4 nights ago. Walking. 63 miles. With Captain the giraffe and a backpack full of crayons." The room spun. I took the stairs 2 at a time, heart trying to punch through my ribs. The yellow room, Harper's room, had a new mattress on the floor, a quilt I didn't recognize, and there she was. My little girl curled under a blanket, thumb in her mouth like she was 4 again, Captain tucked under her chin. I dropped beside her, shaking. She blinked awake, saw me, and whispered, "I told you the house was lonely, Daddy. Miss Ruth and Joe said we could stay till you came home." I cried so hard the camera shook. Downstairs, the women waited. Ruth, 62, former school nurse, widowed, and Joe, 26, ex-foster kid, runaway at 15, been living in her car since March. They weren't thieves. They were ghosts with nowhere else to go. Ruth's house burned down in July. Insurance lapsed. She'd been sleeping in the hospital parking lot where she used to work. Joe had been couch surfing until the last friend changed the locks. They found my farmhouse the same week I left. Thought it was abandoned for good. Fixed what they could. Planned to leave before winter. Then Harper showed up. 63 miles. 7 years old. She told them her daddy was sad and the house was sad, and if she could just get here, everything would be okay again. Ruth tried to call me, no cell service. Tried to call CPS, same. Harper begged them not to. Said if they sent her away I'd never find her. So they stayed. Kept her safe. Homeschooled her with library books. Fed her from the garden they planted in my weed patch. Taught her how to milk the stray goat that wandered up like it belonged there. And every night they told her stories about a brave daddy who was coming back. I sat at that kitchen table until dawn, listening. Crying. Laughing. Apologizing for the gun. Ruth waved it off. Son, I've had worse pointed at me by people who knew me less. Joe asked the question I was terrified to answer, what happens now? I looked at the three of them, my daughter, these two strangers who'd become her angels, and felt something shift in my chest. Like the house had been holding its breath for 27 years and finally exhaled. Now? I said. Now we finish what we started. That was the beginning. The next 12 months broke us open and built us new. Winter came hard. Pipes burst. We lost 3 goats to coyotes. The roof over the west wing collapsed under ice. Money ran dry by February. I took extra shifts, drove 2 hours each way, slept in my truck some nights. Ruth taught me how to budget like a Depression-era grandma. Joe could frame a wall faster than half my crew. Harper, my fierce little foreman, carried boards twice her size and never complained once. We fought. God, did we fight. Joe and I went at it over money. She wanted to sell the timber early, I wanted to wait for spring prices. Words got ugly. She packed her truck one night and made it halfway down the lane before Harper stood in the headlights screaming her name. Joe came back sobbing, and we didn't speak for 2 days. On the 3rd morning I found her asleep on the porch swing, frost in her hair, Captain the giraffe tucked under her arm like a peace offering. Ruth had her own demons. Some nights the grief over her husband ambushed her in the kitchen. She'd stir invisible pots at 3 a.m., calling for someone named Daniel. I'd sit with her, no words, just coffee and silence until the sun came up. Spring brought green and chaos. The county showed up with papers. Squatters. Trespassing. Possible kidnapping charges. They wanted Harper in foster care until investigation cleared. I lost my mind in that driveway. Screamed at suits until my voice gave out. Ruth stood beside me calm as stone and said, "You'll take that child over my dead body." Joe live-streamed the whole thing from the porch, first time we ever posted publicly. By nightfall #SaveHarperHouse was trending. Donations poured in. A lawyer in Nashville worked pro bono. We won custody in 6 weeks. Summer burned. We finished the house. Every board. Every nail. Harper painted the front door sky blue and hung a sign, "Mercer Home, all wanderers welcome." Ruth's grandson, who hadn't spoken to her in 8 years, showed up drunk and crying one July night. Stayed for the weekend. Left sober. Comes back every Thanksgiving now. Joe got accepted to community college. Civil engineering. Full scholarship plus the fund you guys built. She cried so hard she threw up in the peonies. And me? I learned how to be a dad again. How to let people in. How to ask for help before I broke. Last scene of the video, we're all on the porch at sunset. The house glows behind us, windows full of light. Harper's 9 now, missing both front teeth, holding the camera this time. She pans across us, Ruth shelling peas, Jo sketching porch designs, me with my arm around both of them like it's the most natural thing in the world. Harper whispers to the lens, "This is what family looks like when you stop trying to do it alone." Then she turns the camera to the sky, a perfect Carolina blue, and yells, "We did it, Internet. We fixed the stars." Fade to black. One final text. If this story wrecked you the way it wrecked us, do 3 things. 1. Drop a like so YouTube shows this to someone who needs it tonight. 2. Subscribe and hit the bell, we're posting the full tour next week. 3. Comment the word "together" if you believe broken things can become beautiful again. We read every single one. See you in the next one. Mercer Farm out. The screen holds on that word, together. And somewhere in the world, a single mom in a studio apartment hits replay, wipes her eyes, and starts packing a bag for a new beginning. Because if an abandoned house in the middle of nowhere can become a home for 4 strangers who chose each other, maybe she can too.